Form 3 Science, second midterm, Chapter 11, the Human Circulatory System. Objectives. You should be able to know how do human beings transport substances around the body, what are the substances that are being transported, the structure of human heart, how does the heart transport blood around the body, the composition of blood, blood vessels, pulse rate and the factors affecting the pulse rate, major scientific discoveries on human circulatory system, disorders of the circulatory system, and finally you should be able to know how can you keep a healthy heart. As we are going to learn about human circulatory system, it's important to know about the differences between the human circulatory system and the circulatory systems of other animals. So there are animals that are not going to rely on a circulatory system because they are very small or either they have flat bodies. They rely on diffusion to get in the key nutrients into their bodies. So for example, if you take some unicellular organisms like paramecium, amoeba, bacteria, small molecules readily move between and their intermediate surrounding by the process of diffusion. But we know that this doesn't work in large animals because diffusion is not an effective means of getting oxygen into their body as they have more than one cell layer. So what we can see here is the evolution of circulatory systems. Insects, mollusks such as clams, they have an open circulatory system. By and large, fish have a closed circulatory system. On the other hand, humans have a specific circulatory system. It is made up of the blood, heart and blood vessels. The blood carries dissolved nutrients, minerals and vitamins to all the parts of the body, and it removes waste materials. The circulatory system is the transport system of the body delivering oxygen and nutrients to the cells. It takes away waste materials such as carbon dioxide back to the lungs. It transports hormones allowing communication to occur between body systems. The heart. Your heart is a pump. It's a muscular organ about the size of your fist and it's located slightly left in your chest. Together, your heart and blood vessels comprise your cardiovascular system, which circulates blood and oxygen around your body. In fact, your heart pumps about 2,000 gallons of blood every day and it beats about 100,000 times in one day. That's about 35 million times in a year. Let's take a look at a cross-section through a human heart. To keep the blood flowing throughout the body, we have a pumping system and the heart is the pump. So as you can see in this illustration, the human heart has 4 chambers and it is divided into 2 sides, right hand side and the left hand side. The upper right chamber is the right atrium and the upper left chamber is the left atrium. The lower right chamber is known as the right ventricle and the lower left chamber is known as the left ventricle. So if you take a closer look to this illustration, the muscular wall on the left hand side of the heart is thicker than the muscular wall on the right hand side. This is because the left side of the heart needs to pump harder to transport blood to the other parts of the body. The blood leaving the left side of the heart needs to travel a longer distance. Hence, more force is required for this task. The right side of the heart only needs to pump blood to the lungs. The lungs are closer to the heart. Blood leaving the right side of the heart travels a shorter distance than the left side of the heart. Hence, less force is required. This is why the muscular wall on the right side of the heart does not need to be as thick as the wall on the left side of the heart. The division between the right and left sides is a thick muscular wall. The division protects oxygen-rich blood from mixing with oxygen-poor blood. How does the heart transport blood around the body? Oxygen-poor blood or deoxygenated blood returns to the heart after circulating through your body. The right side of the heart, composed of the right atrium and right ventricle, collects and pumps the blood to the lungs through pulmonary arteries. The lungs then refresh the blood with a new supply of oxygen, making it turn bright red. Oxygen-rich blood or oxygenated blood then enters the left side of the heart, composed of the left atrium and left ventricle, and it's pumped through the aorta to the whole body to supply tissues with oxygen. 4 valves in your heart keeps blood moving in the right way. A valve always ensures that blood flows only in one direction in the heart. These valves work like gates on a fence. They open only one way and only when pushed on. Each valve opens and closes once per heartbeat, or about once every second. Muscles in the heart go through a series of contractions and relaxations to pump and circulate blood around your heart and around your body. During contraction, your ventricles contract, forcing blood into the vessels going to your lungs and body. It's like ketchup being forced out of a squeeze bottle. So during this process, the deoxygenated blood in your right ventricle will enter an artery to get transported to the lungs, and oxygenated blood in your left ventricle will enter another artery and it will flow to the rest of your body. During relaxation, your ventricles relaxes and they will be filled with the blood coming from the upper 2 chambers. Deoxygenated blood will be filled in your right ventricle and oxygenated blood will be filled in your left ventricle. So then the cycle starts all over again. What is the lub-dub sound of your heart? So by using a stethoscope, we can listen to your heartbeat. The heart makes a lub-dub sound as it pumps blood around the body. The sound is due to the closing of the valves in the heart. There are valves in between the chambers and in the 2 major arteries. So these will close as heart muscles contract or relax. Double circulation. The human circulation is a double circulatory system. It is made out of 2 circuits. The first one is pulmonary circuit and the second one is systemic circuit. In the pulmonary circuit, deoxygenated blood pumped from your heart to your lungs and become oxygenated. In the systemic circuit, this oxygenated blood that is returned to the heart is pumped to the rest of your body. Blood. Of all the substances within the human body, blood is one of the more familiar one, I guess. I'm sure you have all had an injury which involves bleeding. So let's examine blood itself, what it is made out of and why it is so critical for human life. blood is technically considered as a connective tissue, and as such it's the only fluid tissue in the body. It is comprised of formed elements which are basically blood cells suspended in a fluid called plasma. As a whole, blood is responsible for distributing various substances around the body, most notably oxygen, which we can't survive very long without it. It is also carrying nutrients absorbed by the digestive tract and hormones secreted by endocrine organs. Blood also delivers waste products to the organs that will dispose them, such as carbon dioxide we exhale. Beyond this, blood serves to regulate pH in various tissues and maintains body temperature, and it also prevents infections. Now there's a nice illustration here, as you can see in this illustration. So this is a microscopic view of a blood smear. There are erythrocytes, which are red blood cells, and there are different types of white blood cells along with platelets. If we place blood in a centrifuge, it will separate into its components. The densest section is comprised of erythrocytes or red blood cells, and the least dense section will be the yellowish plasma. They are separated by a white coat containing platelets and white blood cells. Red blood cells. The cells don't possess typical organelles that are in other cells. They do not divide. They are being replaced in the stem cells in bone marrows. Red blood cells takes the highest percentage in components of blood, and they are shaped like flattened discs with the dispersed centers. There is no nucleus inside these cells, but it contains hemoglobin, which combines with oxygen to form oxyhemoglobin. This is a protein, and when oxygen is removed, deoxyhemoglobin is formed. Hemoglobin is the substance which makes blood appears purplish red. Because of the biconcave shape of red blood cells, the surface area to volume ratio is increased, allowing the efficient diffusion of oxygen into these cells. White blood cells. Unlike the far more abundant red blood cells, these white blood cells are complete cells with nuclei and organelles. These are part of our immune system. These help us to defend our body against pathogens and other harmful things. Some types of white blood cells, like neutrophils, can engulf foreign microorganisms and kill them. White blood cells are capable of producing antibodies, which are acting as markers to recognize foreign pathogens or disease-causing organisms. They give the other cells the information about these pathogens to kill and destroy them. So in this diagram, you can clearly see how a white blood cell engulfs a bacterium and destroys it. Platelets. Lastly, we get to learn about platelets. They are fragments of large cells. These are essential during blood clotting process, which happens when blood vessels are damaged, as platelets can plug up any holes in the blood vessels to seal things off. They flow through the bloodstream in an inactive form unless needed, dying every 10 days or so, constantly regenerated. Blood plasma. This is a sticky fluid and 55% of the blood is blood plasma. The straw color liquid contains water with many important dissolved substances which must be carried around the body. Blood plasma contains cells, soluble nutrients such as glucose, amino acids, plasma proteins, carbon dioxide, other waste digested by the organs, hormones, ions. Blood vessels. As we have discussed earlier, blood is pumped throughout the body by aorta and then through the arteries. Arteries have very thick muscular walls to withstand the pressure of very fast flowing blood and to prevent any damage from rupturing. And the lumen is considerably smaller in arteries. If you notice the cross-sectional diagrams here, you can see arteries. If you compare arteries and veins, the lumen of artery is reduced. Arteries branch into smaller arterioles, which then branches to smaller capillaries which surround the cells in a tissue. The movement of blood slows down significantly at the capillaries. The capillaries are much smaller. In capillaries, oxygen is offloaded to the cells. So, blood becomes deoxygenated as carbon dioxide and other waste products are picked up. Deoxygenated blood then travels to the venules and then into the veins. Unlike arteries, veins have much thinner walls and valves that prevent deoxygenated blood from flowing backwards. Remember that the capillaries are very thin and it has one cell thickness and has very narrow lumens. The thin walls of the capillaries always allow the diffusion of gases and nutrients to occur at a faster rate. Pulse rate. Our pulse rate tells us how many times our heart beats per 1 minute. It's also known as the heart rate. Depending on age, physical size, genetics and physical activity, it varies. Usually, it's in the range of 60 to 100 heartbeats per minute. After each heartbeat, a pressure wave passes along your artery, which causes the atrial walls to bulge and then contract. These pulses can be felt at various positions in your body. If you take the index and middle finger of your right hand and place them on the inside of your left wrist, you will be able to feel the pulse. A strong pulse can also be felt at the top of your neck. Exercises cause an increase in your pulse rate, as when you exercise, your muscles contract faster and they require more energy. Scientific discoveries related to human circulatory system. However, with the advancement of the technology in medical field, scientists did so many research and learn about the human anatomy. Many scientists in the past have discovered a lot of information related to the human circulatory system. So, we'll look at the first scientist. His name is Erasistratus. He studied the circulatory system first, and he theorized that the arteries and veins both spread from the heart, dividing finally into extremely fine capillaries that were invisible to the eye. Michael Servetus discovered the pulmonary circulation and identified that blood goes from the heart to the lungs and back to the heart. William Harvey, he established that the heart pumps blood around the body. He also discovered that the heart's 4 valves permitted flow of the blood in one direction only. Glenn, he was another scientist. He realized that the blood from one side of the heart went to the other side. Hence, he suggested that there were tiny holes in the walls of the heart and blood also moves along blood vessels. Hieronymus is another great scientist. He was the first one to describe the membranous folds, and he called them as valves in the interior structure of veins. These valves are now understood to prevent the blood flow or the backflow of the blood. Marcello Malpighi described that the invertebrates do not use lungs to breathe but small holes in their skin called trachea to breathe. Circulatory system diseases. The first time Now we will look into the diseases related to the circulatory system. The first type is blood vessel disorders. Generally, these are referred to narrowing, hardening or enlargement of arteries and veins. It is often due to the buildup of fatty deposits inside of the lumen of blood vessels or infection of vessel walls. Atherosclerosis. It is a condition where lipid plaques form on the inside of the arteries. The buildup of lipids inside the walls causes arteries to become narrowed and hardened. It can be especially dangerous to the heart as it often affects coronary arteries which supply oxygen and nutrients to the heart. This causes the heart muscle to die and the heart stops functioning. Eventually, it can have consequences like heart attacks. Varicose veins. These are swollen blood vessels that appear on the skin as clusters of blue or purple veins. We all know that veins have one-way valves that help blood keep flowing towards one direction. So if these valves are weak or damaged, blood can back up and pull in your veins. This causes the veins to swell and it leads to varicose veins. So these varicose veins can appear anywhere, but they often appear on the legs and the pelvic area. These are 4 times more common in women than in men. As you get older, there is more wear and tear on the valves, so you will be vulnerable to these diseases. More weight in the legs increases pressure in the veins, so weight gain will also lead to varicose veins. The second type is blood disorders. Blood disorders affect one or more parts of the blood and prevent your blood from doing its proper job. They can be acute or chronic. Many blood disorders can be inherited. Other causes include other diseases, side effects of medicines, and lack of certain nutrients in your diet. Anemia is the first blood disorder that we are going to learn. If you have this condition, your blood does not carry enough oxygen to the rest of your body. The most common cause of anemia is not having enough iron. Your body needs more iron to make hemoglobin. We can prevent certain types of anemia by including iron and vitamins in your daily diet. The second blood disorder is hemophilia. It is a bleeding disorder, a problem with a person's blood that makes them bleed longer than a person without hemophilia. No one can catch up hemophilia. It's a genetic disorder. It is an inherited condition you have from birth. This is due to the lack of clotting factors in your blood. How can we keep our heart healthy? Heart and circulatory diseases is still one of the world's biggest killers. If we want to keep our heart in a great shape, we need to practice few things. The first one, we have to cut down the amount of salts we consume. If you have a diet high in salts, it's likely that your blood pressure could be high too, which means you have an increased risk of suffering from heart diseases or strokes. Too much sugar in your diet could lead to weight gain, which can raise your blood pressure and lead to diabetes and other heart diseases. Eating too much butter, ghee, margarine, dairy fats, and processed foods is believed to increase the cholesterol levels of your body. So, you have to limit the saturated fat that you consume in your diet. The nutrients in fresh fruits and vegetables includes vitamins, minerals, and fiber. So, these may definitely help to decrease your cholesterol levels. So, it's important to add fresh fruits and vegetables in your daily diet. Smoking is one of the main causes of cardiovascular diseases, and alcohol consumption can also affect your heart because it causes high blood pressure. So, remember to avoid bad habits like consuming alcohol and smoking. Latest studies show that people who aren't very active are more likely to have a heart attack or a stroke than those who are active. So aim to get at least half an hour exercise daily, and your stress levels also affect your heart. So keep in mind to meditate every day and relax whenever you can. Now here are some questions. I hope you can answer these questions. As we have come to the end of the lesson, we will summarize the lesson. So we learned what are the substances that are being transported and how they are transported in our body, the structure of the human heart. We discussed the composition of blood and the structures and functions of blood vessels. We discussed about pulse rate and the factors affecting it. We talked about major scientific discoveries on human circulatory system and disorders of the circulatory system, and we talked about how can we keep our heart healthy. So thank you and have a nice day.